At the top, Arsenal won at home as expected, Chelsea won at Wolves as expected, which leaves Manchester United, who I guess helped on their way by Christian Romero, but even so won very, very efficiently, played again some very, very attractive football, and are right in the thick of it now.
Yeah, I mean, on Christian Romero first, he can be a world-class, game-changing, match-winning defender, aggressive, dominant, and then in the next breath he can be a reckless liability. The problem is for Tottenham at the moment, the reckless liability is performing more often than the world-class game-changing defender. You know, he's been made captain. And look, I've been sent off a few times and I was captain as well. So, you know, I'm not sat here from a sort of ivory tower looking down thinking that sort of everything's perfect in my world. But he's just doing it far too often. And look, you know, there's no doubt Argentinian defenders, Uruguayan defenders, I think South American defenders have that real sort of horrible, nasty way about them. I love it, by the way. There was one played for Juventus when we were playing back in the day. Oh, he's called Montero. I can't remember his name now, but he was absolutely so tough. But he got sent off about 3 trillion times. You know what I mean? Every other week it felt like. And Romero, just his teammates needed him yesterday, and he's been given the captaincy. And he's been given the captaincy to bring, maybe to calm him down, to compose himself, just to give a bit of stability. And he's really let his teammates down again there yesterday. And obviously his words earlier on the week aren't helpful either. So on and off the pitch as a captain, he's not had a great week. And that obviously makes the game a little bit more comfortable, a lot more comfortable for Manchester United. But the first goal was fantastic. I mean, both goals were fantastic for Manchester United. That free kick, that corner that United scored was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely, so well worked, so well drilled, finding an opportunity. The way in which the sort of Tottenham player at the edge of the box just got sucked in a little bit and then he played it inside him into the edge of the box. Really, really well worked. Coaching team take a massive amount of credit for that. And I thought the second goal as well. I just loved the way that Dalot, we talked about Dalot a couple of weeks ago on here, and I got a lot of heat from United fans thinking that basically you've lost your mind. I'll say it again, I think Dalot has got something in him as a right back. Stick him at right back, keep a stable defence with Maguire, Martinez and Shaw, and I think Dalot will perform at 7 out of 10, week in, week out, if he just simplifies his game and does what he did yesterday. Just whip it into the box. It's the job of the others in there to be there. You just get it out your feet and whip it in. He put a lovely ball in, and it was a tough one for Bruno Fernandes to be able to actually manage and hit. But I'll tell you what, it was an exceptional technique. And look, I can't believe where United are.
No.
You know, if you think I watched them 6 out of those 7 games before Ruben Amorim was sacked, and the one after against Burnley when Darren Fletcher took over. And I mean, it was terrible. It was shocking. It really was shocking. And what Michael Carrick has done, he's rebuilt trust instantly and faith. The players obviously straight away are listening. They're trusting in what the message is. And it's a complete about turn. And he's done more than that. The results are excellent. The performances are fantastic. Really good performances. Really, really good. I like what I see. He's rebuilt faith in actually the system of play in the 4-4-1-1 and the way in which United should always play. Cunha left, Ahmad right, Bruno close and off, and Burmo, the two in midfield. He's rebuilt faith, and I'm probably, to be fair, relating this entirely to the Kobbie Mainoo situation in the fact that Manchester United have to have faith in their academy players, but it's only one player, but he's a pretty good player. And I'm not saying that every Manchester United player that comes through the academy should get more chances than the others. They shouldn't. But they should be given a chance and a fair crack of the whip. And he wasn't given a fair crack of the whip in the first 4 or 5 months of the season. And now he's playing in there alongside Casemiro, who's having a wonderful swan song, isn't he? If you think about how Casemiro is, he almost feels free. That he knows he's leaving at the end of the season. It's an incredible swan song and his form's fantastic. But Kobbie Mainoo in there alongside him just looks so smooth. Just looks so comfortable. So everything at the moment for United is looking really, really good. And yeah, they do look at the moment like they really have got an incredible chance because of the fact they haven't got the confusion and the chaotic fixture list that some of the others have. you would think that they've got a massive chance now with the way in which Michael Carrick has set about the job in getting into the Champions League, which was the unthinkable only 4 or 5 weeks ago. Unthinkable.
Yeah, so, and this is going to be asked so often in the next 2 or 3 months, I mean, at what point does it become impossible not to give Michael Carrick the job, and or can it never be Michael Carrick?
Yeah, well, look, Peter, I made my sort of position clear a few weeks ago, and what I'm not going to do on this podcast is repeat it every week. But what I did, look, I actually spoke to the club, because ultimately the club get asked all the time, officially, from journalists, broadcasters, what's the position of the club? How are the club going to deal with this? Because it's a very difficult situation. You've got a massive movement now with what's happened towards giving Michael Carrick the job and saying that really he should be considered. And that's only going to build the more that he wins and the more that he gets closer to Champions League football. Actually, I asked the club, I said, what is the official position of the football club in terms of what you're saying publicly to everybody else? And I asked them, and I have to say, I thought their answer was pretty good. They said, look, we've actually begun our process now, starting to look for another manager. Which I thought, well, that's good to hear, because you need to plan for everything. So they've started the process of going, speaking to, and I think looking at other managers, building all the sort of data, the analysis of who should be the next manager of the football club. But what they've said is they're not going to be bounced into, irrespective of wins or draws or losses on the pitch in this next couple of months, making an appointment. They're going to wait towards the end of the season. If Michael then at that point makes himself available for the job, and I did say actually a couple of weeks ago on my podcast that I wondered whether Michael actually would say, no, I was told to come in here for the rest of the season, and actually that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to hand over the baton to someone else. Because he is that type of guy, Michael. He's someone who, to be fair, would always work in the best interest of the football club. And he may do that. Or he might say, no, I feel comfortable enough. I've built such a good relationship with the players. I've got a fantastic relationship with my coaching staff. I think we can do a great job here. I want to put my name in the hat and I want to basically put myself forward. At that point, Michael Carrick, like in any other recruitment role in the country for any other business, would go into what would be process versus the likes of Tuchel and all the others that are going to become available in the summer. So I think that's fair. I think that at this moment in time, Manchester United don't need to answer the question. I don't need to repeat my position every single week, but what I would say is that at the end of the season, Manchester United, if Michael Carrick puts himself forward, has the ability to make the decision as to whether they go for Michael Carrick or one of the other candidates that become available. And all I will say right now is, if Michael Carrick is selected or he's not selected, no one can be 100% sure of what the right decision is when it comes to Manchester United. All you can do is go with what your feeling is and your opinion and think of it for the right reasons. So, yeah, I think that we can put that to bed maybe for the next couple of months, because the club have said they're going to look at this and not going to be bounced into making a decision. And if they win another 4 or 5 and they're almost emphatically in the Champions League, and that will be incredible. It'd be a great position to be in, by the way. If you think about where probably Jim Ratcliffe, Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox thought they were going to be maybe a few weeks ago, is that Michael Carrick at the end of the season, Manchester United might be in 6th or 7th, and they're making a decision whereby they're not in the Champions League. This is perfect. This is exactly what they would have wanted, where there is a complete and utter uplifting performance. There's more faith being built in the players. The players all of a sudden look like they can play football at the level that they were when they signed. And Manchester United can make a decision at the end of the season based on the managers that make themselves available. And let's see what they do. My opinion is not the important one. It's the opinion of what those Manchester United executives think at the end of the season when they're interviewing the likes of Tuchel and Howe and Ancelotti, Nagelsmann, whoever else, Enrique, Carrick, etc. Hopefully they'll have a lot of choice and they'll be able to make that choice well.
Yeah. Well, I promise not to ask you that question again.
You can.
For at least a fortnight.
No, look, I mean, they're in a great position. It's been an incredible turnaround. What Michael has done. One thing I will say is, I don't buy into this. I don't buy into this. All he had to do was put the players in the right positions, and it was obvious what would happen. I don't buy into that at all. I think there is some exceptional coaching and exceptional work going on with the players, from the set piece that we saw yesterday, from the very first game, the interlink, the combinations. Yeah, of course they've put players in the right positions. Of course they've basically sort of put square pegs in square holes rather than square pegs in round holes. I get that. But we're also very quick to sort of have a go at managers and coaches when they put sort of square pegs in square holes, play a certain system. I mean, I remember actually I'm a fan of 4-4-2. I always have been. Or 4-4-1-1. I always have been for United. Even though under Eric Ten Hag, I did say at one point maybe this team should actually be suited going to a 3. But let's be really clear. I'm a 4-4-1-1 person. And Darren Fletcher went to 4-4-1-1, 4-4-2 in his 2 games against Burnley and Brighton and lost. So that's the best signal. Forget what Ruben Amorim did. Darren Fletcher put square pegs in square holes, and we didn't get the level of performance. All of a sudden, Michael Carrick, Steve Holland, Johnny Evans, Jonathan Woodgate have come in. They've put the 4-4-2 system or 4-4-1-1 system out on the pitch. Similar players, excepting Ahmad and Mbeumo come back, which are a factor. And the combinations and the way in which the team work together is completely and utterly different. So there is some high-quality work going on the training ground. Because, trust me, we have this big thing, don't we? Whatever we see on a Saturday is a reflection of what happens on the training ground. We can't use that in reverse when we see really good combinations and good work, and then say, "Oh, by the way, they just thrown the players out there onto the pitch." No, they haven't thrown the players out there onto the pitch. That's not what happened. So for me, I think it's been so good. I'm so happy for Michael because, to be fair, the opposite of that would have been 2 defeats against Arsenal and City, or City and Arsenal. Not scoring that last minute winner against Fulham, and then Tottenham not getting a man sent off yesterday and drawing. All of a sudden, they'll be like doom and gloom. You've always got to think about where United are. It's always this or this, and it always has been. And by the way, that's back in the day when we lost a game. It was a crisis. Absolute. Lost 1 game. It was a crisis. Manchester United lost 2 games. It was a real problem. So it's always a bit like that with United. But I think Michael has just brought such composure, such professionalism. He's got a good character for this type of moment, and the players are responding to him, and it's brilliant. It's just nice to be talking about a positive Manchester United for once.
Yeah. Anything else, Gary? We haven't even touched on the bottom, which is really interesting now. West Ham catching up.
Well done to Palace.
Yeah.
Do you know something? I like West Ham from what I saw last week against Chelsea. West Ham play United on Tuesday. That's a lot more difficult game than it would have been a month or so ago. The 2 lads up front for West Ham, Pablo and Castellanos, are a real handful. Somerville and Bowen in the wide areas, a real handful. Yeah, they've got problems at the back, and I think Manchester United will cause West Ham problems. But going that way, West Ham, I think, will have something to say. And I think that West Ham, I thought Leeds were done pre-Christmas, and then we went and watched those games against Chelsea and Liverpool, and that made me think differently about Leeds. I thought, oh, here we go. Leeds have got something about them. West Ham last week, I thought something about them as well. I have to say, Crystal Palace's win today is massive, because they were the ones that I could see sliding down, and they've just arrested that slide. They're not out of it, but I do think that Forest, West Ham, Leeds are awkward customers, and there might be a team that just gets dragged into it. Yeah. And Tottenham need to wake up as well.
Yeah. Champions League chase, I said this to you last week or the week before, but obviously somebody has to miss out. And I wonder whether, if you're an Aston Villa supporter, you'd be a little bit nervous at the moment. It's been so good for so long, and they didn't beat Bournemouth yesterday, and the others are reeling them in. Yeah,
I did say last week Villa could miss out on the podcast. But I said I hope they wouldn't, and the manager, to be fair, knows what to do. But they've got their 3 midfield players missing, haven't they? McGinn, Tielemans and Kamara, yeah. And they're out for quite a while, aren't they? It's a big ask for Villa to miss, that their engine room, the heart of the team. So that's the big question on them. But again, Unai Emery, someone who you wouldn't put it past him to find a way. He has an ability to find a way. Look, all teams, the team that we're probably most confident about finishing in sort of out of Chelsea, Liverpool, Villa, United, is United right now because of what they're doing. But things can turn around quite quickly. I don't think anybody in that top 5 or 6 is going to be sat there saying we're okay. Even City, to be fair, before, if they'd lost today, City would have been thinking, we better just get a few points. City will be okay, but, there's no one who'll feel safe because it's a bizarre season. Teams are beating each other when we don't think they can beat each other. Strange things are happening. But at this moment, it's a little bit glass half empty for Liverpool. It is, after today. But there's 13 games to go, and in 4 games, with 9 games to go, we might be thinking it's glass half empty for Chelsea, for Manchester United, for Villa. We don't know where it's going to go. But at the moment, Arne Slot, just see him doing his interview here, he's got a big job to do. And the senior players in the dressing room have got a big job to do with him. Because there'll be despondency, I think, around the ground tonight, with the fans, with the players. there'll be a feeling that this is not going well, but compartmentalise it and box it up as being one of those things. These are big games. You can lose them. They're 50-50, these games.
Yeah, 12 points out of 12 then for Manchester United. Let's get some reaction in a moment. Their captain first, the manager, Michael Carrick.
People talk about enjoying it. I think there's enjoying doing things well, and it's not an enjoyment where we're in a schoolyard or the playground and or playing in the street. I think there's playing with a real purpose, but the expression and the enjoyment side of doing what you're good at. So I thought the boys got the balance right. You can see that they're playing with confidence and the expression side of the game is certainly there. And we need to keep that. There's things we can work on and keep improving. We've been together 3-4 weeks, so we want to keep striving for more. But certainly to see them enjoying it and excitement and creating opportunities and shots and crosses, it's great. The excitement part of the game and goal mouth action is what we love.
And you're clearly enjoying it.
Yeah, for sure. How can you not? It's the ultimate role for me. To be in this position and feels good. Feels pretty normal. Feels like I've been here again a lot longer than I probably have, but it's credit to the staff and the players, so it's going well at the moment. We've had a really good start, but we're not getting carried away.
Bruno, first of all, can I ask you about your goal? Off the shin, but I reckon you meant it.
Yeah, because I think that if you go with your feet, the probability of the ball going very, very high is big because it's bouncing in front of you. So, yeah, some people will say that it was not meant it, but it was actually meant it because I knew the ball then would have gone straight into the floor, and obviously Vicario there has to move with the ball, so I just tried to go across him to make him not able to jump and get the ball there, and he almost got it.
A controlled finish, and you needed that goal to make sure, didn't you?
Yeah, we needed to close the game, obviously. We knew that we were very in control of the game, but that any moment can change. They had very good players today up front that could make a big difference for them in any moment. So I think to close the game there, and then we still could have got 1 or 2 more goals, but obviously it's not easy when they play with the low block. They were very compact, they were very aggressive also, and they defended very well even with 10 men.
Yeah, so Michael Carrick has already achieved something Ruben Amorim failed to do, and that is 4 consecutive Premier League wins. And what he's done, our good friends, since going in there, nobody could have predicted this with that run of fixtures.
And it's not just the results, is it? I mean, the way they're playing. That first game against Manchester City was incredible. I'd never seen Manchester United play that well for 10 years plus. And then they've continued it, go to Arsenal and win. And the 4 wins are not against lesser teams. I mean, Tottenham, Arsenal, Manchester City, Fulham. I mean, it's brilliant going. And all of a sudden, you're looking at them thinking, wow, I mean, there's no fluke about this. They're playing really, really well. They're on a roll. They're now into the Champions League places. I mean, it's just changed like that. It's quite incredible how one manager can be doing so badly and a couple of little tweaks, a couple of little changes, and all of a sudden it looks like it's the happiest club in the world at the moment.
It's incredible, really, isn't it? Just simple things, what he's done.
Yeah, and it is simple. He's asking players to play in positions they're more familiar with and be more comfortable in scenarios. And so we are surprised because the change was so drastic, but regarding of what he's asked the players to do, we shouldn't be surprised because he's asking good players to play in positions they are familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I would love Manchester United to struggle, I am.
Said our neutral global pundit, Steve McManaman.
But I am thrilled to bits for Michael Carrick and Steve Hollands and Johnny Evans and Jonathan Woodgate. We know them all well. The English coaches will, of course, Johnny's Irish, of course, but you want them to do well. You want them to be given this opportunity. And when they got the opportunity, there was so much negativity around it that I wanted them to do well. I wanted them to prove people wrong. We sit and moan about, as I said, English coaches don't get the opportunity. English coaches never get this. They'll go and employ someone from Germany or Portugal like they have done. Well, an English coach who's been in the Championship, did well, had a little bit of bad luck at Middlesbrough, particularly when he had a couple of injuries to key players. Give him the tools. He can turn these results into really good performances and positive. So I'm absolutely thrilled to bits for him. Liam Rossini at Chelsea again, loads of negativity around it, but he's doing really well, and you want them to do well and keep on improving because it's good for the game. It really is.
We'll come to Liam in a moment. So Manchester United with these clear weeks, only playing 40 games or something all season. Will that really give Michael an opportunity to continue this momentum, even though typically he says, we're not getting carried away. West Ham away next.
Yeah, West Ham away, and West Ham are in good form at the moment. Of course, they lost to Chelsea, but apart from that, I think they've won all three games. Yeah. Tough game going away in the Premier League. Of course it is, but they've been away. They've been away to Arsenal. They can do it. And yeah, it's just incredible. I can't believe the turnaround, I must admit. But you're right, Steve. Nothing to concentrate on other than what's important. No, distractions with Europe or anything.
Not having to rotate.
No, exactly. And I think while it's like this, it just puts everyone in a good frame of mind. They can start almost planning ahead as well. And obviously, Michael Carrick's got till the end of the season. But make no bones about it, people behind the scenes will be starting to think now, oh, wow, should we be giving him on a permanent? Not now, of course, towards the end of the season. But I just think it's a much healthier, much easier place to be. And when you're they're not guaranteed the Champions League, of course not, but it's becoming that way. If they keep going on this run, all of a sudden they'll be able to plan with clarity what's going to happen next season. So, yeah, it's an incredible turnaround. And do you know what? If they keep doing what they're doing, I know some people think, no, Michael Carrick can't have this. Why not? They've tried every single thing. They've gone for proven winners. They've gone for an ex-player. They've gone for, the new big things in Portugal or wherever it might be. They've gone for the lot.
Masters, they've gone for everything, haven't they?
And all of a sudden, they get somebody that's absolutely gets the club, picking the right teams. Everybody's absolutely flying, they're buzzing. Imagine if they took him and said, right, do you know what, thanks but no thanks, we'll put someone else in and start going rubbish again.
Yeah.
You'd need your head looking at. I mean, of course he can be given this job full-time if he continues to do well.
I mean, they will drop points. They will lose games from now to the end of the season. But what he's achieved already, and the way the players are playing, and the way the players, you can see they've got a smile on their faces, like this weight has been lifted off the shoulders. They can express themselves on the pitch. As Jolien said, they can play in their natural positions. They're piling forward, they're making chances, exciting to watch. The Fulham game last week, Sesko scored in the winner. It was brilliant. It was like the old days, wasn't it? And that's what they want. That's what the fans want. That's what Liverpool fans want. That's what Real Madrid and Barcelona fans want. That's the style of play. And the fact that he's brought it back, you should stick with him. And I hope he has the opportunity at the end of the year. I hope they don't panic because of sporting directors and technical directors and he's not the right frame. They should have a serious look about it at the end.
Interesting. Now, you raised Liam Rosenior. When he went in at Chelsea, obviously there was question marks, but they'd won once in 8 league games, and he's gone in, like Michael Carrick, and won his first 4 Premier League games, and they're suddenly in the Champions League spots.
Yeah, and again, what's refreshing about him and Mark Carrick is that they seem very personal to the players. I think they've grasped that it's not just about the coaching. Yes, players want detail and want to win, but they also have to feel like you actually care about them individually as well as a group, and Liam definitely seems and comes across like that. And I think we're doing them a disservice because they're not foreign. I think when no one questioned Mikel Arteta going into Arsenal, and he hadn't even managed. He'd only coached under Pep. So the fact that we have got English coaches that have done the groundwork and the foundations of being a manager and being responsible for a group of players, and these 2 are performing exceptionally well.
And also, Jolien, being good man management. Yeah. Being a good man manager doesn't mean you're soft, doesn't mean you let them get away with murder. Being a good man manager is getting the best out of every individual player and sometimes putting your arm around certain people and saying, look, we need to do this, or asking about family, stupid things. And other times being a little bit more strict with players. But we know that players and the managers in the past for Chelsea and Manchester United have been so cold from the players and don't speak to the players. So there has to be a happy medium. And I'm with Jolien. I think the Chelsea job is a harder job because of their structure that they have. But there's nothing wrong with the way he's gone about the business, has it? Because he's won and won and won. And the players, after they have won, have come out and said really nice things about the manager, which is unusual, for the manager who's been in the job for 6 weeks.
Yeah. And to your point about United, Chelsea have tried everything, haven't they, in that sense? So why not give the young English coach an opportunity, as they have?
Listen, you'd be beating a drum. I think a lot of young English coaches feel quite aggrieved over the years. You look at what's happened at Manchester United. The rope that Amorim was given as well. It started off really poor and it continued to be really poor. And myself included, but everybody wants to see somebody do well. And you listen to them talk and you think, yeah, I buy into that. OK, let's see how it goes. And you give them a bit more rope. If Michael Carrick lost his first 2 games, it's like, right, that's the interim. He's going to be...
He's gone.
It's like, there's a short term, there's a critical thing that sort of, I don't know, surrounds young English coaches, and they've probably not got that mystique when they come from, a foreign country, and everybody's like, oh wow, got the accent, and what's this going to be like? And I think that, I don't know, I just think over time we've enjoyed that, and I think maybe, just maybe, we've got some really good English coaches.
We've always had
right
excuses. They haven't got enough experience in the Premier League. And then if they've got experience in the Premier League, they haven't got enough experience in the Champions League. So there's always something to put another barrier in front of the English coaches instead of saying, you know what, there you go, here's the opportunity. You've learned your trade at the lower leagues, and there shouldn't be a barrier to stop you, because some of that lower league football is just as good and actually just as hard, if not harder, because of the finances and the restrictions, than it is in managing a Premier League team.
OK, they are in good shape. When we come back, we'll...
But we are going to start with that Saturday lunchtime fixture yesterday afternoon as Manchester United beat Tottenham Hotspur. Christian Romero, the Spurs captain, sent off once again. Dan, actually important that the key point to make already is that you've attacked the pastry, because a lot of people who watch at home think that these are purely decorative. But you went straight in before 9 o'clock.
They're not for show.
They're not for show. And I think it's important to make that point, isn't it? To less serious news, let's talk about the game from yesterday. In the Sun, the top line of it from Tom Barkley, James, knee-jerk or not, it must be getting tempting now, is the reference to Michael Carrick making it 4 games in a row. Given the way he started, do you think he's making it easier or harder for Manchester United's hierarchy?
Harder, undoubtedly. Because if they really thought Michael Carrick was the right man, they would have given him the job permanently. Fact of the matter is, what he's doing at the moment is absolutely maximising an opportunity to return Manchester United to some sort of default setting, which is playing the system they want to play, putting the academy players back into the setup, putting just simply the best players in the best positions, which is what Ruben Amorim was so resistant to doing for so long. And I think probably one of the biggest aspects is that he's been bold with a lot of his substitutions. And we saw that when they beat Arsenal, that at 2-2, they were still trying to play on the front foot. They weren't regressing, which is what they used to do a lot under Ruben Amorim. And again, yesterday against Spurs, obviously they had the man advantage, but they kept making positive changes, kept trying to be on the front foot. And the bar is so low at Manchester United these days that is enough to start to make it look like progress. But I have to say, I still doubt whether Michael Carrick is the man who's going to bring back the league title to Manchester United. It feels very Ole Gunnar Solskjaer 2.0 to me, and that what he's done is he's given the players a sense of freedom. You see sort of, the Rabona from Fernandes in the second half, and the players sort of playing this one-touch stuff, which is great, and he's liberated them a little bit. But that is a short-term feeling, and the challenge for the hierarchy is to compartmentalise that and not get away by it.
And that is the difficulty, isn't it? And the balancing act that I guess people like Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox have to strike a little bit. And I remember saying on Sky Sports News on the day that he was given the job, Carrick, is it an adult conversation that is being had here, and said, look, it is 15, 16 games and that is it, no matter how well you do. But if he suddenly reels off 12, 13 wins, it does become a lot more difficult to not give him the job, doesn't it? Or should they stick with their guns? If they thought it's short-term, it is short-term.
No, I don't think they should stick to their guns. I think they should give him the job. I mean, if he'd been parachuted in April and it'd been 5, 6 games and they'd won all of them, and maybe they'd have thought, well, he needed longer. Well, it's quite a long time in the season. A lot can happen. So, if he's done it over several months, and looking at what he's doing, bringing in a really good assistant manager in Steve Holland, I don't think we should underestimate what a huge, massive impact he will have. Both, just basic coaching, of course, but just everything we saw with England. The culture, and we know the culture's been wrong at Manchester United. So to bring that in, which Gareth Southgate probably would have done had he been given the chance at Man United, which I thought might happen when Dan Ashworth was there. But obviously Steve Holland is there now, albeit with a different coach. But he'll have a huge impact. And, it's obvious that Maguire's back in the team. Luke Shaw, Kobe Mainu, maybe, one of those three could get into the World Cup squad because, they were all been out of the reckoning. And ultimately, if United get those results, I think Carrick has to have the job.
It's interesting that James was talking about it being Ole Gunnar Solskjaer 2.0, and the quotes from Bruno Fernandes says Michael has won everything here. He knows what it means to the fans, he knows what it means to the club, and knows how much you need to win here. I think that adds something special to the team. And the criticism was when, firstly, it was Darren Fletcher, then it became Michael Carrick, that this is just a Manchester United routine, that any time something goes vaguely wrong, you think, well, someone who knows Fergie slightly, just give him the job for a bit and it will go back to the good old days.
Yeah, I noticed Roy Keane saying he wouldn't give him the job even if he won every game between his appointment and the end of the season, which I think speaks to this anxiety that it's going to be Solskjaer 2.0, to James's point, that they've been here, they've kind of done this and it didn't work. I noticed United didn't give him the interim tag. They didn't say Michael Carrick's the interim manager or head coach. They said he's the manager until the end of the season. So they've left themselves some wiggle room there perhaps to make that appointment and just extend his contract if it goes really well. I think we have to reserve judgment because he has been a breath of fresh air. It is new manager bouncy, I think. He's freed up the players. He's played people like Fernandes in their proper position. So no wonder Fernandes is giving him a ringing endorsement. He's back at number 10. He's put faith in academy players. He's brought players back in. So he's done a lot of simple things to dramatically improve the side. But there is an element of that kind of freshness and the players being liberated from Amorim and his system, which I think obviously wasn't working. So let's see how it goes. But they've got a 40-game season. I think they should be targeting second. They've got the time on the training pitch that we talked about with Amorim a lot, but I think Carrick will probably use that better than Amorim was doing and would have done. So look, let's see how it goes. And I think, to Charlie's point, if they keep winning, it'll be very hard not to give him the job.
Is the counter argument to that what he's actually doing is returning Manchester United to the mean? That if we all did our 1 to 20s at the start of the season, you probably would have said somewhere between 3rd and 6th is where they would be.
Well, let's not forget that near the end of Amorim's time at United, he went to a back four briefly, and they actually looked all right. And then he went back to the 3. And I like Michael Carrick, and I want him to do well. I'm glad he's doing well. But he's not the man long-term for Manchester United.
As in someone who can deliver a title?
If Manchester United want to get back to winning titles, they've got to look to a bigger name than Michael Carrick. What you're seeing now is a product of a team that is being well coached, and Charlie's absolutely right. Steve Holland is the best appointment they could have made in that coaching staff, really, alongside Carrick. There's a clarity of thought. There's an important kind of distinction there with the culture of what you can see now versus what you can see before. And look, Michael Carrick knows the club, United DNA, all that sort of stuff. It is a factor. But this is a short-term bounce. This is a club that's been through this process before with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They know how this plays out. They will reach a ceiling with him, and it won't get any higher than that.
They've also been through big-name managers before, though, and it hasn't worked.
Yeah, but this is why I don't necessarily see the argument of like a sort of a Carlo Ancelotti coming in, a sort of figurehead, unless you've got... That is a team that needs to be coached, and it also is a team that needs to sort its recruitment out. And they also are playing 1 game a week at the moment. They're going to play, 40 games this season, the fewest they've played in decades. They've got a single purpose at the moment, and that really, Michael Carrick that's what I meant at the start, is by maximising this opportunity. They have a single purpose, 1 competition, 1 game a week, 1 focus. And Michael Carrick is absolutely getting the best out of United at the moment in that environment. When you go back to 3 games a week, to trying to win silverware, and the margins get tighter at the top end of the game, that's where you want someone with that pedigree to get United back. But I just feel Carrick is the perfect moment for now, but not for the future.
But in terms of, we're all sort of, looking at is history repeating itself with Solskjaer, aren't we? Equally, you could look at Arteta, and he's been brought in at Arsenal. He's not managed before. Obviously assistant to Guardiola, or just because he was Pep Guardiola's assistant doesn't mean that he was going to be a great manager. We didn't really know. So he's more inexperienced than Carrick, and obviously Arteta didn't have the experience of Steve Holland, and he's obviously been given a lot of money, but he's been given time, and he's going to win a title. So, you know, there is a sort of a counter-argument to the Solskjaer comparison, isn't there? That if he is good enough, and obviously we've yet to find out Carrick, but I think his lack of experience doesn't bother me when there are more sort of, you know, inexperienced managers being given time at big clubs.
I guess there is also the counter-argument that just because there have been big-name managers there before that haven't worked, that's not to say that if they went and now they're planning properly and thinking that there is this moment now where Michael Carrick takes it to the end of the season, he gets them into the Champions League as he perhaps should with the squad he's got, but really the focus is on getting someone like a Thomas Tuchel or a Ancelotti or whoever it might be, because everyone knows that there could be this huge market for elite managers once the World Cup is done.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I say is, like, United finished, 15th or 16th last season?
15th.
So, you know, the suggestion that their kind of rightful place in the pecking order is sort of third or fourth, I think, you know, that's probably a sort of antiquated view. Like, that would be a massive improvement for him to get them up there. You know, albeit they spent a lot of money in the summer. So I think that would be a good finishing position for them if they can get back in the Champions League. I think there are inherent risks with like any managerial appointment, and you look at the managerial market right now and it's not great. I think it will improve after the World Cup. As you say, Tuchel, possibly Pochettino, possibly Ancelotti, people like that could come on the market. But United won't be the only club in for a new manager in the summer. You know, there's a lot of talk about Pep Guardiola's position at Manchester City, Slot at Liverpool, Thomas Frank at Tottenham, maybe even Eddie Howe at Newcastle as well. So there are kind of no guarantees. As I said, I think we've got to wait and see kind of how Carrick continues to operate, how it goes. But so far, so good.
Let's say the opposite to so far, so good, Dan, and move on to Spurs. Martin Samuel's piece puts juice down, ready to make serious points about Tottenham. Romero isn't a rebel or a hero. He's a liability who should go. Martin goes on to say, Romero isn't the outspoken champion of the resistance at Tottenham. He isn't a rebel or a hero. He's a liability. This was the sixth sending off of his Tottenham career, a dereliction of duty for the club captain, as he is now. He had a lot to say during the week. Can you get away with saying quite so much if your own performances aren't up to scratch?
At the moment, he's a nightmare on and off the pitch, I think. And I would kind of separate the two things. I think I have mixed feelings about him calling out the club, as he's consistently done and as he did just after the transfer deadline. I think that's not a great look for a captain, obviously, but there is an accountability problem at Tottenham. It's not just at Tottenham, it's across the Premier League. Executives, owners don't speak enough. It's very hard for us in the media to hold these people to account because they don't open themselves up to accountability, and it's difficult in other ways for supporters to hold them to account. So if someone like Romero, who's got clout and status among the fan base and is a World Cup winner, feels that standards are slipping, then I don't have a huge problem with him coming out and saying that. The problem is, and Martin Samuel makes this point, when Harry Kane was calling out standards, he was holding himself to impeccably high standards. You know, he was brilliant on the pitch. He was the model professional off it. And at the moment, Romero, you know, is not. He's actually, notwithstanding his goals, which have been great, I think is having a pretty poor season defensively. He's a liability in terms of his discipline. And Spurs at the moment, the best thing about Spurs are these young players, you know, Archie Gray, Odegaard, Bergvall. You know, they need leadership, they need guidance. The last thing they need is the kind of hothead captaining the side. So I think Spurs have got a problem. I think Frank now is damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. He doesn't really have the political capital to strip the captaincy from him because he's not popular with fans, and Romero is. Nor do Vinay Venkatesham or the owners, really. They're equally unpopular. But if he leaves him with the armband, then I think he looks weak. So it's a real mess, and it's just another problem Spurs have in a really difficult season.
Just on what Dan was saying there about the reason for Christian Romero doing it, and it's sort of being seen as, oh, he's taking a stance because he feels standards are slipping. Is the counter-argument to that, it's a little bit like, oh, it's not our fault, like we've not been helped by the board here, and us poor players are being left with just 12 of us to fight on, and actually the players haven't been good enough, and maybe because the players and also at times the manager have been so used to everything being Daniel Levy's fault that when he's not there to chuck the blame at, some of the frustration starts to go elsewhere, including on the players.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you call the board out like that publicly, you absolutely have to back it up on the pitch yourself. And Romero's not doing that. I wonder, and I don't know this, but I wonder whether there have been certain promises made to him that he feels haven't been kept. You know, at the back end of last season, it looked like he was going to go to Atletico Madrid. I think he spoke in April publicly about how he'd like to play in La Liga one day. And then all of a sudden in August, he signs a new contract and he's made captain when Son Heung-min leaves. So, look, I mean, when he's come out and he sort of talked about, I think it was within an hour of the window closing, he was talking about, sort of going for the board. You sort of think, OK, I wonder if you sign that new deal on the basis that you've been told we're bringing in players, or there's been a kind of pitch to him about the ambition of the club, and they felt that the players feel that hasn't been executed, and then that would manifest itself again when they've got injuries, to sort of say, well, look, you didn't strengthen the squad and this has left us exposed. And it will be that element of it, if that is the case, that will resonate with the supporters, because of course they feel that there's not been enough investment or the right recruitment in the team over a number of years. And I think this speaks to the wider point about Spurs at the moment, is that it looks a bit rudderless as a club. And I think Vinay Venkatesham's gone in and he's trying to sort that out. But of course, above him, they've got the Lewis family that have come in and been more prominent this season. Daniel Levy's left. They've got a new chairman as well, and then a new management, and all these kind of changes. And I think the players feel, based on what Romero's saying, that it all feels a little bit lost. And you know, that leads to instability off the pitch and on the pitch. And I think there's a recognition from Thomas Frank and from the decision makers above him that there's quite a bit of pain to go through. And I think that's why they don't want to necessarily get rid of Thomas Frank. They've sort of resisted the temptation to do it when they could have done it already. But if he keeps losing games like this, and the atmosphere at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium continues to be as toxic as it is, there's only one person who's going to get changed, and that will be the manager.
Do you think part of the problem is perception with Tottenham? And we're going to talk about Newcastle in the next part, and that maybe Spurs fans see a club like Newcastle, Aston Villa being the other example, who want to spend more money and keep reminding us that they're being hamstrung by these financial rules that are in place, whereas some Tottenham fans see there's actually a lot of money there, but maybe not the desire to spend as much of it as fans would like. And obviously fans always want to spend more money than owners, in the sense that it's not their money, but there is perhaps a lack of ambition, a perceived lack of ambition.
Well, they've spent a lot of money on a lot of rubbish, and that's Daniel Levy's fault. And that's why a player like Conor Gallagher now is the sort of profile that, in terms of personality, character.
Is that Daniel Levy's fault, or is that someone like Paratici's fault or Johan Langer's fault?
I think he had such a strong presence at that club that regardless of who was allegedly making those decisions, I think Daniel Levy had a lot of power, and I think Thomas Frank underestimated what a toxic dressing room it was when he went in there. I thought Thomas Frank was a good appointment. I really did. So I think I'm wrong there, because maybe he's just not big enough. It wasn't big enough, or isn't big enough to deal with an incredibly difficult situation. I'm not sure which managers could cope with that. To be honest, because you've got a lot of players who quite clearly don't want to be there, but ultimately I think quite a few players that just don't care. And I think that's really pretty obvious that they just don't care. We've seen the body language from some of the players, and when they walked off the pitch, and a couple of them, not shaking Frank's hands and all that sort of, rubbish. So it's.
Do you not think, Charlie? I think this about Romero. He seems to me to be a product of his environment. When he's playing in an Argentina team that are trying to win the World Cup, he doesn't put a foot wrong. And when he's trying to win the Europa League, he's impeccable. And then when it's all crumbling around him, he does what he did on.
But whose fault's that then?
Well, I think there's an element of the players just reflecting the environment they're in. I think if they don't care, it's because, as James says, that there's just a lack of structure and leadership and ambition and cohesion and all the rest of it around them, and it's just kind of leading to these sort of gutless performances. Really.
Do you think that there's an element there for them that, in a way, the players, it bleeds down from the top, as in the sense that Is Tottenham Hotspur's primary objective to be successful and win trophies, or is it to have a lovely stadium, stick Beyonce and the NFL on and make a bit of money?
Yeah, well, that was the big question under Levy, and that was the big criticism of Levy, that he didn't want to win enough, and I think it was completely valid criticism. And I think, that there's still that question. And look at Spurs now, and I just think, I don't know, and I'm for the record, I'm a Spurs supporter, but I look at them and I think, I don't know what kind of club Spurs are trying to be. Are they trying to be a club that actually wins things? Are they trying to be entertainers? Are they going for the trophies? Are they going for Champions League qualification? And it's just not clear kind of what their purpose is and what their kind of aims are. And again, I'm sure that filters down to the dressing room. Like, I don't want to completely let the players off the hook. I think there are some poor players and I think there are some poor attitudes there. But, the fish rots from the head, and I think it's the problems at Spurs are from the top down, really, rather than the other way around.
Well, I think one other element of this that we shouldn't overlook was the takeover situation, and there was a lot of takeover talk. And as much as the club denied it, I think there was a desire among some to sell, and obviously that didn't happen. And now they've kind of shelved all the takeover talk, and Joe Lewis's family members have come in. And there's sort of talk about this new era and long term, and we're here, to stay and all this kind of stuff, which they've said, but I don't think they now know how to take the club forward. And I think it all stems from that. So this is a club that was getting to a point, and you talked about the new stadium, the training ground, it was an attractive business proposition to be sold. And I think they got it into a position where they were thinking about selling it. Now they're not, and they don't know how to take it on. And Thomas Franks walked into this situation above him and the situation below him, where, let's not forget, the last manager left with a trophy parade and thousands of people lining the streets of North London, and loads of the players coming out on social media and saying how great Ange was and everything he did for their careers and all this. So he's inherited that below him, and that above him. You can see why